The rain battered the tin roof of Grandma's small house, a relentless drumbeat that matched the pounding in my chest. I was 4 years old, curled up in Grandma's lap, her calloused hand stroking my hair. She hummed an old hymn, her voice a warm anchor in the storm. Outside, the world was chaos, lightning splitting the sky, thunder shaking the walls. But inside, with Grandma, I was safe. She was my harbor, my shield, the only constant in a life that had already been fractured. I don't remember much from the night my mother left me. I was barely too young to grasp the weight of her absence. Grandma told me the story in pieces over the years, careful not to break me with the truth. It was 2 a.m., the kind of hour where the world feels suspended, when my mother, Lila, slipped out of this very house. She left a note, scrawled in haste, "I can't do this. Take care of Ellie." That was it. No goodbye, no explanation. Just me, asleep in a crib, and Grandma, waking to find her daughter gone and a toddler to raise. Grandma never spoke ill of Lila, not even when I asked why my mother didn't want me. Some people, she'd say, her voice soft but heavy, lose their way before they find it. I clung to that hope as a child, imagining Lila would return one day, her arms open, her heart full of regret. But years passed, and the hope faded like an old photograph left in the sun. By the time I was 25, I had built a life in this small town of Willow Creek. I worked as a librarian, surrounded by books that offered escape and wisdom. Grandma, now 72, still lived in the same house, her garden a riot of colors, her kitchen always smelling of fresh bread. She was the heart of our community, baking for church fundraisers, tending to neighbors' ailments with her herbal remedies, and teaching me that love could be fierce and unyielding, even in the face of loss. But the past has a way of clawing its way back. It was a Tuesday evening, the air thick with the promise of autumn, when a knock came at the door. I was shelving books in the living room, Grandma humming in the kitchen. The knock was sharp, insistent, like it demanded something. I opened the door, and there she was, Lila, my mother. She looked older than I'd imagined, her face etched with lines that spoke of hard years. Her hair, once a vibrant auburn like mine, was streaked with gray, pulled back in a messy bun. Her eyes, though, were the same green, sharp, and calculating. She wore a faded denim jacket and carried a purse that looked too expensive for her worn-out shoes. "Ellie," she said, her voice a mix of honey and gravel. "It's me." I stood frozen, the word Mom caught in my throat like a stone. Grandma appeared behind me, her presence steady but tense. "Lila," she said, her tone flat, like she was naming a storm. "I need to talk," Lila said, glancing past me into the house. "Can I come in?" Grandma didn't move. "What do you want, Lila?" Lila's smile faltered, but she pressed on. "I just want to see my daughter." "Is that so wrong?" 21 years. 21 years since she'd left me in the dead of night. And now she stood here, acting like time was a minor inconvenience. I wanted to slam the door, to scream, but something in her eyes' desperation maybe held me back. Grandma's hand rested on my shoulder, grounding me. "Let her in," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Grandma's grip tightened, but she stepped aside. Lila sat at the kitchen table, her hands fidgeting with the strap of her purse. Grandma poured coffee, her movements deliberate, her eyes never leaving Lila. I sat across from my mother, studying her, searching for something familiar. But all I saw was a stranger. "I know I messed up," Lila began, her words tumbling out like she'd rehearsed them. "I was young, Ellie. Scared. I wasn't ready to be a mom. But I've changed. I've been thinking about you every day. Grandma snorted, setting the coffee pot down with a thud. Thinking don't raise a child. Lila flinched, but kept her eyes on me. I want to make things right. I want to be part of your life. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the little girl who'd waited for her mother was gone, replaced by a woman who'd learned to build walls. Why now? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Lila hesitated, her fingers tightening on her purse. I need your help. Ellie, I'm in trouble. I owe some people money, bad people. If I don't pay them, they'll hurt me. The room went quiet. The only sound the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Grandma's eyes narrowed. How much? She asked, her voice like steel. 10,000. Lila said, barely meeting Grandma's gaze. I wouldn't ask if I had any other way. I felt like I'd been punched. She wasn't here for me. She was here for money. The realization burned. But Grandma's hand on mine kept me from falling apart. We'll think on it, Grandma said, her tone final. You can stay in the guest room tonight. Lila nodded, relief washing over her face. But as she stood to follow Grandma, I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of guilt. Or maybe calculation. I didn't know which was worse. That night, I lay awake. The rain outside a faint echo of that night 21 years ago. Lila's return had torn open old wounds, and I wasn't sure I could trust hearer myself to face what came next. The guest room door creaked shut behind Lila, and the house settled into an uneasy silence. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the faded quilt Grandma had made when I was a child. Each stitch was a testament to her love, her sacrifice. The contrast with Lila's sudden reappearance was stark, like a crack in a mirror you can't unsee. Morning came too soon. The sky still gray, but the rain reduced to a drizzle. I found Grandma in the kitchen, kneading dough with a ferocity that betrayed her calm exterior. She's still asleep, Grandma said without looking up. Probably exhausted from carrying all that nerve. I managed a small smile, but my stomach churned. Do you think she's telling the truth? About the money? The trouble? Grandma paused, her hands still in the dough. Lila's always been good at telling stories. But truth, that's harder for her. She wiped her hands on her apron and met my eyes. What's your heart telling you, Ellie? I didn't know. Part of me wanted to help her, to believe she'd changed. But another part, the part that remembered the empty crib and the years of wondering why I wasn't enough, screamed to protect myself. I don't trust her, I admitted. But I don't want her to get hurt. Grandma nodded, her expression softening. That's your goodness talking. But goodness don't mean you owe her anything. Breakfast was tense. Lila emerged from the guest room, her hair neater, her smile practiced. She complimented Grandma's pancakes, but her eyes kept darting to me, like she was measuring my resolve. I know this is a lot, she said, cutting into her food. But I'm trying to fix my life. Ellie, I want to be someone you can be proud of. The words stung, not because they were untrue, but because they felt like bait. Grandma's fork clinked against her plate. A warning. Fixing a life don't start with asking for 10 grand, she said. Lila's face tightened, but she recovered quickly. I get it. You're skeptical, but I've got nowhere else to turn. Ellie, you're my daughter. Doesn't that mean something? It did. That was the problem. It meant everything, and nothing at all. I pushed my plate away, my appetite gone. I need time to think, I said, standing. I'm going to work. The library was my sanctuary, a place where stories made sense and endings were tidy. I spent the morning sorting books, losing myself in the rhythm of it. But Lila's presence lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. By noon, I was distracted, misplacing titles and forgetting patrons' names. Mrs. Carter, a regular, noticed my unease. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Ellie," she said, her voice kind but prying. "Something like that," I muttered, forcing a smile. When I returned home, Lila was in the garden, pacing between Grandma's roses. She looked out of place, her city shoes sinking into the soft earth. "Can we talk?" she asked as I approached. I nodded, leading her to the porch swing. The air was crisp, the scent of roses mingling with the damp earth. "Tell me about the trouble you're in," I said. "The truth." Lila sighed, her hands twisting together. "I got mixed up with some people in the city. Loan sharks. I borrowed money to start a business, a boutique, something I thought could be mine. But it failed, and now they're after me. They don't mess around, Ellie. I've seen what they do to people who don't pay." Her voice trembled, and for a moment, I saw fear in her eyes. But I also saw the gaps in her story, the way she avoided details. "Why didn't you go to the police?" I asked. "They'd kill me before I got the chance," she said quickly. Too quickly. I leaned back, the swing creaking under us. "I don't have $10,000. Lila. I'm a librarian. Grandma's on a fixed income. You must know that." I thought, maybe you'd saved something. Or Grandma's house site's worth something. Right. Her words were casual, but they hit like a slap. She was eyeing Grandma's home, the place that had sheltered me, as collateral. "Get out," I said, my voice low but firm. "You don't get to come back and ask for that." Lila's eyes widened, but she didn't argue. She stood, brushing off her jacket. "I'll give you time," she said, "but I'm not going anywhere until we figure this out." As she walked back inside, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. Grandma had warned me about Lila's stories, but I hadn't realized how deep her manipulation ran. I needed answers, not just for me, but for the woman who'd raised meth, woman who'd never let me feel abandoned, even when I was. The next few days were a tightrope walk. Lila stayed in the guest room, her presence a constant pressure, like a storm cloud hovering over the house. Grandma kept her distance, her silence louder than any words. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept circling back to Lila's request. $10,000. The house. The audacity of it all. I started digging. If Lila was in trouble, there had to be a trail, something to prove or disprove her story. I spent my lunch breaks at the library, using the computers to search for any trace of her life in the city. Social media was a dead end. Lila had no profiles I could find. But a news article from a small outlet caught my eye. A boutique in downtown Raleigh had closed 6 months ago. Its owner, Lila Marie Harper, cited for unpaid debts. The article mentioned creditors, but no loan sharks. It was a start, but not enough. I called an old friend, Jake, who'd moved to Raleigh and worked as a private investigator. "Can you look into someone for me?" I asked, my voice low as I hid in the library's back room. Discreetly. "Ellie, you sound shaken," Jake said. "Who's this about?" "My mother," I said, the words foreign on my tongue. "She's back, and I need to know what she's been doing for the last 21 years. Jake promised to dig, but it would take time. Meanwhile, Lila was weaving herself into our lives. She helped Grandma in the garden, her hands clumsy but eager, and offered to cook dinner, though Grandma politely declined. She talked about her dreams, her regrets, painting herself as a woman who'd made mistakes but was trying to atone. I wanted to believe her, but every word felt like a performance. One evening, I found her in the living room, flipping through an old photo album. Pictures of me as a child, Grandma beaming beside me at birthdays, school plays, graduations. Lila's finger lingered on a photo of me at 5, gap-toothed and grinning. "You were so happy," she said softly. "I missed so much." "Then why did you leave?" The question slipped out, raw and unfiltered. I hadn't meant to ask it. Not yet. But it hung between us like a blade. Lila closed the album, her shoulders slumping. I was 22. Ellie. I was lost. Your daughter left when I was pregnant, and I couldn't handle it. I thought you'd be better off with Mom. She was always stronger than me. Her words were a half-truth. I could feel it. You didn't even call, I said. Not once. I was ashamed, she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. I didn't know how to face you. I wanted to scream that shame doesn't excuse abandoning a child. But Grandma's voice echoed in my head. Goodness don't mean you owe her. I stood, leaving her with the album, and went to find Grandma. She was in her rocking chair on the porch, her knitting needles clicking rhythmically. She's playing you, Grandma said without looking up. Always was good at tugging heartstrings. I know, I said, sitting beside her. But what if she's really in danger? Grandma set her knitting down, her eyes sharp. Then we help her, but not at the cost of your peace. Or this house. I nodded, but the weight of it all pressed harder. Jake called the next morning, his voice grim. Your mom's been living in Raleigh for years. Ellie. She's got a rap sheet petty theft. Fraud. Nothing major, but enough to show a pattern. No record of loan sharks. But she's been seen with some shady types. I'm still digging. But be careful. She's not who she says she is. The news settled like a stone in my gut. Lila wasn't just desperate, she was a liar. But I needed proof. Something concrete to confront her with. I started watching her more closely, noting how she avoided phone calls when I was around, how her purse was always within reach. One night, when she was in the shower, I did something I wasn't proud of. I looked through her things. Her purse held literally a few dollars, a cheap phone, and a crumpled receipt from a pawn shop in Raleigh. The receipt listed a gold necklace, sold for $200. My heart stopped. Grandma had a gold necklace, a family heirloom she'd promised to pass to me. I checked her jewelry box later that night. It was gone. Fury and betrayal churned inside me. Lila wasn't just here for money, she was stealing from us. I wanted to confront her, to throw her out. But Grandma's voice in my head urged caution. Justice, she'd always said, comes from truth, not anger. I needed to be sure, and I needed a plan. The discovery of the missing necklace changed everything. It wasn't just about money, Anna Maria, it was personal. Grandma had worn that necklace on her wedding day, a delicate chain with a heart-shaped pendant, passed down from her mother. It was a symbol of love, of endurance, and Lila had taken it without a second thought. I didn't tell Grandma right away. I couldn't bear to see the hurt in her eyes. Not until I had answers. Instead, I called Jake again. Can you check pawn shops in Raleigh? Look for a gold necklace with a heart pendant. Sold recently. Ellie, you're playing detective now, Jake said, half teasing, half worried. I'll look, but don't do anything reckless. Reckless was tempting. I wanted to storm into the guest room, demand the truth, but I knew Lila would twist it. She was too good at that. Instead, I watched her, waiting for a slip. She was careful, though too careful. She stopped talking about the money, instead focusing on small gestures, washing dishes, complimenting my work at the library. It was as if she sensed my suspicion and was doubling down on her act. Grandma, meanwhile, was quieter than usual. I caught her staring at Lila sometimes, her expression unreadable. One afternoon, while Lila was out taking a walk, I sat with Grandma in the garden. The roses were fading, their petals curling in the cool air. "She took your necklace," I said, unable to hold it in any longer. Grandma's hands stilled, her pruning shears hovering over a rose bush. "I know," she said simply. "Noticed it missing 2 days ago." "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Because you needed to see her for who she is," Grandma said. "Not who you hoped she'd be." Her words cut deeper than I expected. I'd been clinging to a fantasy, a version of Lila who could be redeemed. But Grandma was right. Lila's actions spoke louder than her tears. "What do we do?" I asked. "We get proof," Grandma said, her voice steady. "Then we make things right." Jake called the next day with news. The necklace had been pawned at a shop called Gold and Glitter, the same one listed on Lila's receipt. The shop's owner remembered her, said she'd been in a hurry, nervous, and had asked for cash up front. "There's more," Jake said. "I tracked down one of her associates. Guy named Vince. Runs with a crowd known for small-time cons. No evidence of loan sharks. But Lila's been pulling scams for years, fake investments. Sob stories. She's good. Ellie. Real good." I thanked him and hung up, my hand shaking. Lila wasn't in danger, she was the danger. The realization was a strange relief, like lancing a wound. But it also meant confronting her, and I wasn't sure I was ready for that. That evening, I found Lila in the kitchen, sipping tea. She looked up, her smile faltering when she saw my expression. "Everything okay, Ellie?" "No," I said, sitting across from her. "I know about the necklace. I know you pawned it." Her face went pale, but she recovered quickly. "I was going to tell you. I needed the money to hold off those guys I told you about. I was going to buy it back. I swear." "Stop lying," I said, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside. "There are no loan sharks. You've been conning people, Lila. That's why you're here, not for me, but for money." She opened her mouth to protest, but I held up the pawn shop receipt. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw her mask slip. "You went through my things," she snapped, her voice sharp. "You stole from Grandma." I shot back. "You don't get to play the victim." The room crackled with tension. Lila stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "You don't understand what I've been through," she said, her voice rising. "I came here to make things right." "Then why steal?" I demanded. "Why lie?" Before she could answer, Grandma appeared in the doorway, her presence like a storm about to break. "Enough," she said, her voice low but commanding. "Lila, you've got one chance to tell the truth, or you're out of this house for good." Lila's eyes darted between us, her bravado crumbling. For a moment, I thought she might confess, might finally show some shred of honesty. But then she grabbed her purse and bolted for the door, leaving it swinging open behind her. I started to follow, but Grandma stopped me. "Let her go," she said. "She's made her choice." But I couldn't let it end like that. Not yet. I needed justice, not just for me, but for Grandma. For the years she'd carried the weight of Lila's choices. I grabbed my keys and headed for the car, determined to find her. The streets of Willow Creek were quiet. the streetlights casting long shadows as I drove through town. Lila couldn't have gone far on foot, not with her purse and no car. I checked the bus stop first, then the diner, but she was nowhere. My hands gripped the steering wheel, frustration mingling with a strange, aching hope that she'd turn back, that she'd prove me wrong. I found her at the edge of town, near the old gas station, pacing under a flickering neon sign. She froze when she saw my car, her expression a mix of defiance and fear. I pulled over, stepping out into the cool night air. "Lila," I called, keeping my distance. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to say," she said, her voice sharp but shaky. "You've made up your mind about me." "You made it easy," I said, holding up the pawn shop receipt. "You stole from Grandma. You lied about why you're here. What did you expect?" Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment, she looked small, defeated. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said. I needed a way out." "Then tell me the truth," I said. "All of it." She hesitated, then sat on the curb, her purse clutched to her chest. "There's no loan sharks," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I owe money. Yeah, but it's to a guy named Vince. He's not some thug's a partner. We've been running cons. Small stuff mostly. But the last one went bad. And now he's leaning on me for 10 grand to cover his losses." I stared at her, the pieces falling into place. "So you came here to scam us? To take Grandma's house?" "No," she said, her eyes flashing. "I came because I thought you'd help me. You're my daughter, Ellie. I thought, maybe you'd want to know me." Her words were a knife, twisting in my chest. I wanted to believe her, even now, but the truth was clear. "You don't get to use that card," I said. "You left me. You don't get to come back and act like family when it suits you." Lila's eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were real or another act. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant for it to go this far." I wanted to walk away, to leave her there under the neon glow, but something held me back. Maybe it was the little girl who'd waited for her mother, or maybe it was Grandma's lessons about compassion, even when it hurt. "Come back to the house," I said finally. "We'll figure this out. But no more lies." She nodded, wiping her eyes, and followed me to the car. The drive home was silent, the weight of her confession pressing down on us. When we got back, Grandma was waiting on the porch, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. She told me the truth, I said, stepping out of the car. "No loan sharks. Just a scam gone wrong." Grandma's eyes flicked to Lila, then back to me. "And what do you want to do about it?" I didn't know. Part of me wanted to call the police, to let Lila face the consequences of her actions. But another part remembered Grandma's words about justice coming from truth, not anger. "I want the necklace back," I said, "and I want her to make things right." Grandma nodded, her gaze softening. "Then that's what we'll do." The next morning, we drove to Raleigh. Lila sat in the back, silent, her hands fidgeting. The pawn shop was a dingy storefront, its windows cluttered with jewelry and electronics. The owner, a gruff man named Carl, recognized the necklace immediately. "Lady brought it in last week," he said, pulling it from a display case. $200. I paid for it, my savings taking a hit. But the weight of the necklace in my hand was worth it. Grandma's eyes glistened when I handed it to her, but she said nothing, just slipped it into her pocket. Lila watched, her face a mask of guilt. "I'm sorry," she said again, but the words felt hollow now. You're going to pay this back. I told her. Not just the money, but the trust you broke. You owe Grandma that much. She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She didn't believe she could change, and maybe she was right. But I wasn't doing this for her, I was doing it for Grandma. For the woman who'd taught me that love could be both fierce and forgiving. Back home, Grandma sat me down. You did good, Ellie, she said, her voice warm. But don't let her drag you down. You're stronger than that. I nodded, but the weight of Lila's return lingered. She was still in the guest room, still a question mark in our lives. I didn't know if she'd stay, or if she'd run again. But I knew one thing, Grandma and I would face it together, just as we always had. The days that followed were fragile, like walking on cracked ice. Lila stayed, but her presence was a constant reminder of the past. She tried to make amends, helping with chores, offering to pay back the $200 in small installments, but her efforts felt forced, like she was playing a role she didn't fully understand. Grandma watched her with a wary eye, her forgiveness tempered by years of wisdom. I wanted to believe Lila could change, but trust was a bridge we'd need to rebuild slowly. I went back to the library, finding solace in the routine. Books didn't lie or betray. They offered truths you could hold on to. But even there, Lila's shadow followed. Patrons whispered about the woman who'd returned after 21 years. Their curiosity tinged with judgment. I smiled through it. But inside, I was unraveling. Jake called with an update. Vince's bad news, he said. He's been dodging the cops for years, small cons. Nothing big enough to stick. Lila's tied to him, but she's small fry. If you want her out of your life, I can tip off the authorities anonymously. The offer was tempting. Lila's lies had cost us more than money. Feed reopened wounds I'd spent years healing. But I thought of Grandma, of her belief that justice wasn't about punishment, but about setting things right. Not yet, I said. I need to give her a chance. Jake sighed. You're too good for your own good. Ellie, call me if you change your mind. That night, I sat Lila down. Grandma joined us, her presence a quiet strength. If you're serious about making things right, I said, you need to cut ties with Vince. No more cons. No more lies. And you need to start paying back what you owe, not just the money, but the years you took from us. Lila's eyes were wide, her hands trembling. I want to, she said. But Vince, he won't let me go that easy. Then we'll help you, Grandma said, her voice firm. But you've got to choose. Lila. Us or him. For the first time, I saw something real in Lila's eyes, fear. Yes, but also a flicker of resolve. Okay, she whispered. I'll try. We worked out a plan. Lila would get a job, something honest, even if it was small. She'd pay back the $200, bit by bit, and stay away from Vince. Grandma offered to let her stay, but only if she followed through. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, Lila got a job at the diner, washing dishes. It was grueling work, but she showed up every day, her hands red from hot water, her face lined with exhaustion. She gave Grandma $20 a week, a small gesture, but one that carried weight. I watched her closely, waiting for the slip, but she kept going. One evening, as we sat on the porch, Lila handed me an old photograph. It was of her and me, taken just before she left. I was a baby, nestled in her arms, her smile bright but strained. I loved you, she said softly. I just didn't know how to stay. I took the photo, my throat tight. You can't change the past, I said, but you can choose what happens next. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. For the first time, I believed they were real. Months later, Lila was still here. She wasn't perfect, she stumbled, snapped under pressure, forgot to call when she said she would. But she was trying, and that was more than I'd ever expected. Grandma and I talked late into the night, her wisdom guiding me through the uncertainty. Love ain't easy, she said, but it's worth it, even when it hurts. Lila's return hadn't healed all the wounds, but it had taught me something. Family isn't just blood, it's the people who stay, who fight for you, who pick you up when you're left behind. Grandma had been that for me. And now, maybe, Lila could learn to be something too. Not a mother. Not yet. But something new. Something we'd build together. As I looked out at the garden, the roses blooming again in the spring light, I felt a quiet strength. Justice wasn't a single act, it was a process. A choice to face the truth and keep going. Grandma had taught me that. And in her love, I found the courage to let Lila try. One day at a time.